صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك يا أهل بيتك المظلومين. صلى الله عليك يا مولى ويا ابن مولى يا أبا عبد الله. يا غريب يا شهيد يا مظلوم كربلاء. يا ليتنا كنا معكم. صلوات. I begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. May His peace and blessings be upon His final messenger, Rasulullah, His holy household, and the master of our time, Sahaba, Rasulullah, Ta'ala, Rashahun. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Dear brothers and sisters, respected community members, Assalamu alaikum jami'an, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I'd like to start by asking a question. So how is it that the Ummah of Rasulullah was able to slaughter the grandchild of Rasulullah? How did it come down to that point? What was it that happened? This first started before Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Before he passed away, you can see the events as they transpired. He asked to write a will. He was called delirious. At that time, people had lost all God consciousness. They had no taqwa. They did not fear God before he passed away. After he passed away, we see what had happened. The Ummah had lost all sight of God. They had no taqwa left. This is why Imam Hussein alayhi salam had to sacrifice his life to make an Islah in the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. To bring back God consciousness, taqwa. Because it is this taqwa that gave comfort to Imam Hussein alayhi salam when he was martyred. This is this taqwa that gave comfort to the martyrs of Karbala when they stood against the enemy, but they saw nothing but Allah. This is taqwa that we all need to have and attain. Most of us these days are in a spiritual state of sleep. Imam Ali Islam has a saying which he says that people are asleep, but when they die, they wake up. And unfortunately, that's when it's too late. Remember the first verse I started with my first lecture in this series. I said that there's a verse that's Surah Al-An'am, verse 122. And it's he who was dead and we gave him life and made him light to walk amongst the people. But the first part is he who was dead, then we gave him life. So we, these days, if you look at the world, and if you walk into the mall, you see just teenagers walking around on their phones, paying heed to nothing happening. You sit inside of restaurants, you see families sitting together, everyone's just on their phones. Everyone's in a different state of mind. Everyone's lost these days. We have lost insight, we lost insight of the meaning of life, we lost the vision of life, basira. We are just living in a state of robotic motions. We wake up every single day, do what we have to do, and just go back to sleep. We don't realize that we are the companions, and the children are the companions of the greatest Ahlul Bayt. We have to walk in their footsteps. We can't live lives like this, just be lost in emotions. We need to become the best we can be. We have to literally walk in the footsteps. And I'll give you a story of Salman al-Farsi alayhi salam. Salman al-Farsi, as you know, he had reached the 10th level of spirituality. The Imams have told us there's 10 levels of spirituality. He reached the highest levels. Now Salman, he used to love the Prophet a lot. So there's one day, there's a companion. He wanted to sit next to the Prophet in Masjid Nabawi. So the Prophet used to give lectures in Masjid Nabawi. And everyone would try to get close to the member as close as they can possible because it's barakah. And each day this companion would rush to the masjid to be the first one there. But each day he would never get there on time. He'd always be second row, almost the first row, never make it. So one day he's like, you know what? I'm going to come up with a plan. I'm not going to sleep tonight. No matter what, I'm going to get to this masjid, be the first one there, and sit right in front of Rasulullah, no matter what happens. So that night, he doesn't sleep. He gets up before Fajr. He walks towards the masjid, and he's looking at the ground. And he sees there's only one set of footprints. He's like, yes, today I'm going to get there and be the first one. No one else has awake. There's no other footprints. Because at that time, you can see footprints in the sand. It's very easy. So he gets to the masjid, and he sees one person sitting right in the first row. He walks to this person. He says, either you slept here or you fell from the sky. How can you be here? Guess who this person was? Salman al-Farsi. Salman al-Farsi, he tells him something very powerful. He says that you only saw one set of footprints, that's right. Because I literally walk in the same footprints as Rasulullah. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we learn a lesson from that story. That Salman, not only does he follow in every single attribute, he literally walked in his footsteps. Step by step, because every action that Rasulullah makes and that Ahlul Bayt make is the best way of life. So we have to reflect on their lives and implement them today. We cannot be lost in this society and give in to the society what they want from us. We cannot be influenced by society. This is why Imam Hassan sacrificed his life. For us to change, for us to have vision of life, to understand, to have taqwa. God consciousness. Allah says in the Quran, Inna hubbul muttaqeen. Allah loves those who have taqwa. Now taqwa is translated as what? The best translation is God consciousness. And it's mentioned at least 200 times in the Quran in different forms. And in fact, the first command that Allah gives you is to have taqwa. In Surah Al-Baqarah, it's to have taqwa. So the first command Allah has given us to have taqwa. Taqwa, it comes from a root word. And what the meaning of the root word taqwa is to what? A shield, something that protects you. Taqwa is a spiritual shield which will protect you. They say that it's the difference between living an animalistic life to giving into your body's desires and living a spiritual life. Because we realize, our soul will return. We don't realize that, no, our soul will not return. We are the soul. We have a body. We're not a body, we're a soul. This is why this body will be left here and our soul will return to Allah. And before we return to Allah, we have to make sure we return to Allah in this life as best we can. Now, taqwa is to feel the presence of Allah in every moment of our life, no matter what happens. And the best way to describe this is the example of a speed camera. Now, I don't know how much speed cameras you guys have here in Tampa, but in New York we have them everywhere. So, okay, so you know how annoying they are, speed cameras, right? So, when you're driving, usually you're going above the speed limit. A little bit above, you're not supposed to, no one do that. But when you see a speed camera, you slow down. Everyone does this. You see the camera, everyone put their brakes, drive really slow. Once the camera's gone, you speed up a little bit back. Taqwa is like this speed camera. You need to have the speed camera on 24 hours in your life. Not only slow down when you need to, or not only become better when you think someone's watching you, or whatever situation you're in. For example, I gave you the example of Nabi Yusuf's story yesterday, alayhi salam, and Zulaykha. Before she locked the doors, you know what she did? She had an idol inside the room, she covered the idol's face. She thought that she can cover his face and it'll be good. Taqwa means to understand Allah is everywhere and there's nowhere that He's not. If you live this way, you'll live a beautiful life. Oftentimes, younger kids, we probably doing bad stuff and they see their parents, they stop. Or even adults, they're doing bad stuff, they see their parents, they stop. Or if someone they say, oh, they can't see me doing this. Allah is always watching. He has never stopped watching you. So realize this, have this taqwa, turn on the speed camera for your life 24/7. And you'll live a very perfect life. Always understanding that Allah is always there. Now, when you have taqwa, the Imams have given us one example, how to live the best life of taqwa. They say that when you know you have taqwa is when you can present your deeds of the week to someone else. You can write them down and give it to someone else, be like, this is what I did this whole week. If you're ashamed of these deeds, then you're lacking taqwa. But if you can proudly write down everything you've done this week and give it to someone else for them to look at and read, then you're living a life of taqwa. So I make this a mission for you guys, quick homework for you guys. At the end of the week, try to do that. Once a week, you can do it on Jummah or Thursday night, the day you ask for forgiveness. It's probably the best night to do so, because Thursday, you ask for forgiveness. Look at your deeds every single Thursday. Write them down. See if there's anything you're not able to tell someone else that you did. If there is, make sure you never do that again. This is how you're going to get into a life of taqwa. Because taqwa, it's a spiritual shield. It says it's an adornment for the shield. It beautifies the soul. And with taqwa, you become the object of divine love. You start reflecting Allah's qualities in your life. We call Imam Ali alayhi salam Wajh Allah. Why do we call him Wajh Allah? Allah has no face, we know that. The reason we call Imam Ali alayhi salam Wajh Allah is because he reflects all of Allah's qualities on a human being on earth. Allah is Al-Rahman, Imam Ali alayhi salam was so merciful. Allah is Al-Adil, Imam Ali alayhi salam was the most just. This is why someone can reflect the qualities of Allah in this life. All his attributes that we have, he put his essence inside of us with those attributes. The love we have inside of us, the mercy we have inside of us. The closer we get to Allah, the more we reflect those things. Allah hasn't given us prayers and du'as for us to just read them and just forget about them. It's because they make you a better person. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam salawat, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He said, if I've come down for one thing, it is to fix your akhlaq, to make you a better human being. So if you read du'as all night, all day, but you're not becoming a better human being, it's worthless. You're not doing it correctly. You need to reflect what you read and understand what you're reading and why you're reading it. Allah wants you to become the best of human beings. And this is why, oftentimes we just read, you have to understand what you're reading too. Those who don't understand what they're reading, read translations along with it. Understand what you're reading, do not just blindly read. Because there's no difference between you and a parrot then. Because at the end of the day, just repeating what you see. You're not understanding. Try to make sure if you're reading a dua, read the translation if you can't speak Arabic. Make sure you're understanding everything you're saying, and make sure there's duas and you're reflecting upon everything you're saying. Because if you don't reflect on what you're reading, then it's pointless. Allah doesn't want us just to hear duas from us. He wants us to reflect upon it and become better people. Now, I'm going to tell you how to tell if you have taqwa in your heart, and how to, just understand what level of taqwa you're at. For everyone, there's certain steps to understand how to tell if you have taqwa. Then we'll get into what are the steps of taqwa, what are the stages of taqwa, and how we can increase our taqwa. This is what I want to talk about tonight. Now, the first way to tell is your true intentions. Your intention for everything should be qurratan Allah. You're doing everything for Allah. Sometimes people may live very good lives because they're never tested in situations. They don't understand what it means to be tested. For example, I come here every single day and I set up this whole masjid and I make everything beautiful. And then the next day, I'm very happy I'm doing that. It's very nice. I like to show that I'm doing that to everyone. And then one day, this person named Muhammad comes on the stage and says, every single day I'm the one who's doing this. He doesn't give me credit. This other person takes all the credit for everything I'm doing. How would you feel in that moment? Would you feel some type of way? What was your intention? Was it to show people what you're doing? Or was it for Allah? Ask yourselves, if you work so hard on something for Allah's sake, but someone else takes the credit, so what? You did it for Allah, right? You benefit everyone else. If you don't feel this way, because the reason is we don't do things for intention of Qurbat Allah. Everything you should do is for the sake of Allah. No matter who takes the thing, remember, you're being honored by Allah's eyes. That's all that matters. So if you feel that kind of way, that's the way to judge the level of taqwa that you have as well. How pious you are in your intentions. Your intentions definitely matter. There's one story of Bahlul. As we know, Bahlul was someone who used to teach people lessons through jokes. He used to tell people that he's crazy, but he used to teach people lessons. So there's a companion who built a masjid. He worked so hard to build this masjid, spent so much of his money, spent so much of his time. Before the naming ceremony of the masjid was coming out there and showing people the masjid was made, Bahlul comes in the morning and puts his name, Masjid al-Bahlul. This person comes the next day and looks at the masjid and he throws a fit. He's like, what is this? Bahlul did not make this masjid. What was this person's intention? And at that moment, he started getting angry and started being rude. And was your intention to build a masjid for your name or for Allah's sake or to worship the people? So this is why your intention matters in everything that you do. Your niyyah, everything that matters. Understand this is a measure of taqwa as well. Now, another way is that there's a story of a man during the time of Imam Ja'far alayhi salam. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He used to go steal food and give it to the poor. He was a Robin Hood at that time. He took 4 loaves of bread one day and stole it and gave it to 4 people. So Imam Ja'far comes up to him and says, what are you doing? He says, oh Imam, I heard that you get 10 deeds for each person you feed. I only took 4 things. So that's 4 sins, but I fed 4 people. So that's 40 good deeds. I'm still on the up. I have 36 good deeds and 4 sins right now. The Imam says, no, none of this counts because you took your sins lightly. And oftentimes we live this lifestyle that we can be bad, but we can just do good and make up for it. No, the Imam says, do not take your sins lightly. Because at the end of the day, it's those small sins which add up. And you don't realize they become mountains. You cannot just say that, oh, I can do bad deeds, but one day I'll come to Laylatul Qadr and make up everything, It doesn't work like that. Yes, if you do bad deeds, you can come to Allah for forgiveness and change. That's the intention we need to have. We can't live a life like this just saying, I can do bad, but I can do good as well. No. You have to have true intentions to change. Now, one other example we have of taqwa is when someone's given a position of power. Imam Ali Islam one day, once he was caliph, he was sitting inside his treasury, since he was in charge of the treasury, and he was doing the accounting, and Tala and Zubair, they come inside. Tala and Zubair wanted to make a deal with him, to give their bay'ah to him, in order for, some positions that they wanted. So they come to Imam Ali Islam, they see him writing down stuff, working on something, and he has a candle lit because it's dark. He puts out that candle, takes out a candle from his pocket and puts it up and lights it up. So they asked him, why did you do that? He says, because this candle is bought from the funds of the treasury. So while I'm working on the treasury, I'm using this candle. You have come to me for a personal affair, so I'm going to use my own candle. This is the type of level we need to have of taqwa, God consciousness, and understand what it means to be truly God conscious. He's aware of Allah at all times. He says that it's like people who have taqwa, they see Jahannam in front of them at all times. You live as you can feel the heat of the fire always. And that way you'll always be on the right path, always. Allah says in the Quran, we will save those who have taqwa. Remember that. He starts your first command is taqwa. He tells you he loves those who have taqwa and he'll save those who have taqwa. So what is taqwa? I'll give you the levels of taqwa. Imam Ja'far alayhi salam, salawat, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He tells us there's 3 types of taqwa, 3 levels. The first level is to avoid doing just the wajibat. Following the basic requirements of faith, as we explained yesterday, the wajibat are the basic requirements of faith that you have to do. That's the first level. To start off, if you want to attain taqwa, you just do the first basic levels. That's level 1. If you're not doing that, start by doing everything that's wajib upon you. And then as you start doing the wajib, you'll realize you want to do more and more. You fall more in love with God, you start doing everything else. Then the second level is not only doing the wajibat, but avoiding all sins. And not doing anything that's doubtful whatsoever. If there's a doubt on it, and it's not 100% this is wrong, right? Just stay away from it. That's the second level of taqwa. Imam Zain al-Din al-Islam, he says that oftentimes we think of sins as small. It's just something very small. I just said one curse today, I just this today, I lied once today, I spoke giba. I'll be fine. Sometimes we think of some sins as light. We let them go. We ignore them. He says, do not look at the size of the sin. Look at who you are disobeying. Always remember this. Do not think something is very small. Remember who you're disobeying. Even the smallest disobedience to Allah, you're disobeying Allah Himself, you know? And the third level is that the highest level is you have the sabr and the fortitude to forsake anything that stops you from the remembrance of Allah and takes you away from the remembrance of Allah. Now, what do I mean by this? Number one, we discussed yesterday, do not give a path to shaitan. We discussed Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam denied and looked at Zulaykha for 7 years because he knew how beautiful she was. Do not be anywhere. If you know you're going to go to your friend's house and there's going to be ghibah done there, do not go. If you know you're going to a wedding and there's music playing and there's going to be dances, do not go. Do not be in anywhere that you can compromise your faith. Do not just give a path to shaitan. Because at the end of the day, you're going to, if you invite sin in, shaitan is going to take the invitation and come full force at you, no matter what happens. So, these are the 3 levels of taqwa. Now, the Quran tells us, and through Ahmad we have hadiths that tell us steps to attain taqwa. Now we know the 3 levels, how to get there, but what are the steps we can take to actually get there? The number one is the Quran. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam salawatullah salli ala Muhammad wa alayhi Muhammad. He tells us the Quran revives the heart. He says your hearts can become rusted like metal. Your heart can rust. Some of our hearts might be dead spiritually. They need to be revived. The Quran revives the hearts. Listening to the Quran, reciting the Quran revives the hearts. You know, I told you the other day that there's levels of verses you can recite, and each level of verses you recite is how high in paradise you get. And we said that to become someone who's just someone who submits to Allah and abd of Allah, you have to recite at least 50 verses a day. Now some people may seem like that's a lot because you never even open the Quran, right? But 50 verses, how long does it truly take you? 10 minutes? Honestly, how long does it really take you? About 10 minutes. I ask yourselves, those who use social media, how much do you usually spend time on social media every single day? You can open up your phones, your Instagram app shows you can use how many hours you spent in a day. At least for everyone it'll be about 1 or 2 hours, at least 2-3 hours per day. If you add up all the times you touch your phone, especially younger people. You spend 3 hours on social media looking at all these wrong things, but 10 minutes for Allah's Quran, the book of Allah, the word of Allah, and when she says this is the guidance for mankind, the Quran will revive your hearts. You have 10 minutes. We often just say we don't have time. We have the time if you make the time. And if you don't make the time for Allah, the one who's giving you time, who are you making time for? We have to often think about these things, brothers and sisters. Now, and ask you another thing. How many of us can truly read the Quran properly? If you can open up the Quran and read it properly right now. And you don't have to answer this. It's just a personal thought for yourself. If you're not able to read the book that Allah has given you for instructions, I'm telling you that spend this month of Muharram learning how to read the Quran. Be able to pick it up and read it at any page. Learn how to read it properly. Make this your gift to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, to honor his sacrifice. If you cannot read the Quran, learn to read the Quran. Make this your mission. This 1 month, or as we have 69 days approximately, make it your mission and dedication to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, that I'm going to learn to read the Quran and build a relationship with the Quran. Because we often ask, our eyes that cannot see the Quran, how do we expect to ever see the Imam when he comes back? You have to look at the word of Allah, read it, understand it. It truly revives your heart. You never know which verse can change your entire life. We have a story of Fudail ibn Iyad. Fudail was a very well-known thief and a bandit during the time of Imam Shafi alayhi salam. He was known as someone, Salawatullah salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So Fudail used to go around and rob people, used to steal everything. People used to be scared of Fudail. And Fudail he fell in love with this one girl in town, and every single day he would try to go to her house to take a look at her. So one day as he was going there to take a look at this girl, there's a caravan passing by, and the other narration says that there was a person reciting Salat al-Layl. And they recited this verse in the Quran. And this verse in the Quran is verse 16 from Surah Al-Hadid, and it says, I'll give you the English translation, has the time yet come for the believers that their hearts pay heed and feel humility towards the word of Allah? Has the time yet come? This verse is what he heard, and it truly struck him. It struck a note in his heart, and he's like, what am I doing? And this verse truly got to him, so he changed. He's like, let me stop this. He got down, he felt confused, he's like, what am I doing with my life? He eventually goes, meets a bunch of travelers, and he starts talking to them. And they say that, oh, we don't want to stop here, we want to keep moving. Why? Because we heard of Fudayl. Fudayl is a robber, he'll steal everything from us. They're talking about him, they don't know that he's there. He starts realizing, Allah, what have I done in my life? I didn't pay heed to your word. And he's like, Allah, I have to change. I truly have to change. And I'm going to make, if I'm not going to change and make the invitation, the urge to change myself, no one else is going to change me. So from today, I'm going to change. Fudayl became a companion among Prophet Islam. He went to his classes. He became a scholar of Islam. And today, many books of spirituality, especially the Sufi orders, they take a lot of spirituality from Fudayl. He wrote books on spirituality. This one man that used to become a robber, he used to be one of the worst robbers in Arabia at that time. One verse changed him. Read the Quran, brothers and sisters. You never know what can change you. Which verse will revive your hearts? Now, we have the second way. So number one, reading the Quran. Number two, worshiping Allah, praying. The hadiths tell us that those who have taqwa, they worship Allah at nights. Salat al-Layl. Salat al-Layl is one of the best things you can do. It says that all of the Ahlul Bayt, even Sayyidina Zainab alayhi salam, on the night of Ashura, they all pray Salat al-Layl as much as they can. Salat al-Layl is just 11 rakats. You don't even have to feel a full prayer. You can pray it in parts. Spend the night worshiping Allah as best you can. Nawafil prayers, mustahab prayers. Give your time to Allah as best you can. Dhikr, what you can do. This will all increase your taqwa. Because the more you pray, the more you fall in love with God. And you understand, you're aware that He's around you at all times. And make your day revolve around prayers, brothers and sisters. Do not, for example, say that, I have to go this place and this time I'll pray later. No. Set your day in such a way that you revolve your day around the prayer times. Because that's Allah's invitation to you 5 times a day. Don't miss it. Now we have worshiping Allah, salat, we have reading the Quran. All ways to attain taqwa. Choose your friends wisely. That's another way to attain taqwa. And why do I say this? Because sometimes your friends may take you away from worship. I know so many kids that used to come to the mosque and they became friends with people who never go to the mosque. Now their friends are having parties and events, they're like, while you're supposed to go to the mosque, you're not going to go to the mosque. You want to be with your friends. Everyone wants this friendship. And likewise, they can motivate you. And they can make you better spiritually if you have friends who are very spiritual. For example, those who go to the gym, young guys, you realize that when you're with your friends, you want to work out more, you want to lift more. Why? Because you're motivated. Same way, if you're with friends who have higher spirituality and they're praying all day and reading the Quran and coming to the masjid, you're going to want to be like them. You're going to want to participate as well. So understand, you have to choose your friends really, really wisely. Because either you motivate each other or you deviate each other, at the end of the day. So choose your friends wisely. There's a theory called group dynamic theory. Group dynamic theory says that, for example, why do rehab, right, AA, Alcohol Anonymous, people, why do they get together and discuss these things? Because they're all going through something, they're encouraging each other to become better. For they have, group rehab for people who become alcoholics, and they go through many problems in life, they put them in a group and make them do rehab. Why? Because you're encouraged by everyone else around you. And they affect your mind and your psychology. So understand this. The friends you have, the groups you have, they have a big, big impact in your life. Now we got down to worship, Quran, choosing your friends, choosing your companions, and choosing your spouse for those who are not married. Even for those who are married. This is one of the best ways to attain taqwa. Because if you look at the words of Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says that there was no one like Sayyidah Fatima Zahra who helped me get closer to Allah. Understand this. You can either elevate each other or make each other away from Islam. So it's why it's very important to choose your spouse. Zuhair ibn Cain, one of the companions, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he first was reached out to, he was debating on whether to go or not. His wife said to him, she says, what will you say to Rasulullah on the day of judgment when you leave behind his grandson? You know, she encouraged him. She says, how can he be like this to grandson Rasulullah? So she could have either persuaded him to stay or persuaded him to go. This is why it's very important to choose a companion. And when he's leaving, he says, I accept, I'm going to leave. She says, take me with you. She wanted to be there with him. Make sure you choose someone who will help you get closer to Allah, who will always love that debate. And, you know, it's going to help you in life. And one of the last things to attain taqwa is to have basira. Basira, wisdom, have vision, to understand what your goals are in life, to understand we are the followers of Ahlul Bayt, as I mentioned earlier. We're not here to just live by the emotions of this life. We're beings of higher realms. Our souls are not meant for this life. You know, as they say, the Imams have said, this life is like a prison. Imam Ali has divorced this world 3 times. Because this world is nothing. So understand this. And this is how we become better in this life. And stick true to the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt and what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us. The Quran and my hifdi. You'll never go astray. Follow their footsteps, follow their teachings, and you'll never ever go astray. Follow their vision in life. Whenever you think of something, you want to be somewhere, say, what would the Imam see me? How would he feel if he saw me in this place? When you want to do something in life, what would the Imam do in this situation? What would their companions do in this situation? Use this thought process and you'll never go astray in this life. Especially the youth, you know, we need to have attained taqwa. And one of the best examples of youth from the story of Karbala, the tragedy of Karbala, was Ali al-Aqsa. You know, I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it today again. When Imam Hussein told him we're going to die, he says, what does it matter if death's coming to me or we're coming to death for haqq? He was aware of Allah. He had taqwa, God consciousness. And Ali al-Aqsa alayhi salam, let's salawat. Let's all start by sending our salams together to the Imams. Assalamu ala al-Husayn wa ala Ali ibn al-Husayn wa ala awlad al-Husayn wa ala ashab al-Husayn. We have a narration that says that one day Imam Hussein al-Islam and Ali Akbar al-Islam were in the masjid. A man came to them and he says, I want to become a Muslim. And they say, why do you want to become a Muslim? He says, yesterday in my dream I saw Rasulullah and Rasulullah told me, he was speaking, and I saw Nabi Isa alayhi salam. And Nabi Isa alayhi salam guided me towards Rasulullah. He says, follow him and follow his footsteps, he's the right path. This man was a Christian who wanted to become Muslim. So Imam Hussein alayhi salam is listening to this story. He says, do you remember the face of Rasulullah? Do you remember his face? He says, yes, it was the most beautiful face. The most nurani face you could possibly imagine. Then he says, if I show you someone, can you tell me if he looks like him? Ali Akbar was sitting next to him. He calls Ali Akbar. He says, look at this child. He says, does he look like him? The man fainted because this is how he looked just like him. He was shabih him. He looked just like Rasulullah. So Imam Hussein says to him, what would you do if this beautiful face got hurt one day? The man says, I couldn't handle it. He says, do you know that my son Ali Akbar, one day he's going to be cut into pieces? Do you know this beautiful face you're looking at right here, one day it's going to be cut into pieces? By our own followers? I want everyone to close your eyes, take yourself to the plains of Karbala. Listen to the days, because these are the days that the waters have been cut off. Listen to the cries, Alatash, Alatash, Alatash from the orphans that are soon to be orphans of Rasulullah and Hussein alayhi salam. The companions have all been slain, and Bani Hashim has been left all alone. Habib is gone. Zuhair is gone. Everyone has left Imam Bani Hashim all alone. It is now left, only the Bani Hashim are left. Ali Akbar alayhi salam was the first to go. As he was leaving, and it says Ali Akbar alayhi salam was the hardest one to let go for everyone. Except Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he let him go. But everyone, every time he would leave, people would call him back. They would call him right back. He said, come back, say one more goodbye to us. Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam calls him. He says, come to me, my brother. And Imam Ali Akbar alayhi salam starts crying and crying. He says, why are you crying like this? He says, do you not know that our father is Garib? He's Atshan. He's Madloom. He's been left alone. He's thirsty. Another narration tells us that as Ali Akbar alayhi salam was going to the battlefield, there was a little girl who grabbed his foot. A little 4-year-old girl. She grabbed this, but she said, brother, please don't go. Please don't go. Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to take care of me, brother? Please don't go. And as he was about to finally leave into the battlefield, Imam Hussain alayhi salam calls out to him, Waladi, ilayya, come to me, ya waladi. Don't leave me alone like this, come to me. And he looks at him and he bows his head because he says he does not want to see the enemy, see him grieving. He says, oh my son Ali, come to me, come close to me, my son Ali, so I can bid you farewell, so I can smell your scent one last time. Imagine, fathers, your first son is about to go into the battlefield to be slaughtered. And then they start crying. Imam Hussain is crying, weeping for the separation that's about to happen. And he says, he looks at him, he says, it looks like I'm about to say goodbye to my grandfather for a second time. Imam Hussain is Garib at this moment. He's about to say goodbye to his first son for the last time. As he's about to finally leave, one hadith says that Imam Hussain, he's crying so much he almost fainted because of the love that he had for his son. As he gets on the field, the battlefield, he says proudly, Ana Ali ibn Hussain ibn Ali. If you do not know who I am, I'm Ali, the son of Hussain, the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Nahnu Ubaytullah Ali ibn Nabi. I swear we're the closest to the Prophet. He's reminding them, look who you're about to kill, the family of the Prophet, the grandson of the Prophet, the one who looked like the Prophet. Now the mother, his mother, she's looking. She couldn't see in the battlefield. What she did, she started looking at the face of Imam Hussain to see his face. If it's still worrisome, then she sees it becomes very, very worrisome. Imagine a mother looking at her first child about to become slaughtered. Imagine a mother, you hear the children crying right now. Imagine how would you feel. You love this child. You want to do anything to stop this child's crying. Imagine looking at your son in the battlefield, the enemy's attacking left and right. How would you feel? So Imam Hussain, she sees the face of Imam Hussain grieving. She says, come to him, why are you grieving, Ya Hussain? What's happening to my son, Ya Akbar? Please tell me what's happening to him. He says, please go recite dua to Allah, so he comes back to us one more time. So we can say goodbye to him one more time, our precious Ali Akbar. It says that she went and she started reciting a powerful dua to Allah. She says, Ilahi bidubarti ila Abi Abdullah, Ilahi bitash al-Hussain, Ilahi bitash al-Hussain. I ask you for the thirst of Hussain alayhi salam. Please bring me back, my son, one more time to say goodbye to us. He comes back. He defeats the person, he comes back. He comes to say his one final goodbyes. He says, Abba ya Hussain, alatash kat katanani. The thirst is killing me, ya Hussain. Ya Abba Hussain. The thirst is killing me. The thirst of Karbala is killing me. He says, are you proud of me? He says, yes, I am. Go, my son, go. And it says he goes in the battlefield for one last time. He strikes left and right. They cannot kill him one-on-one, so they surround him, and they kill him. And this part is hard. It says when they kill him, his head was almost detached from his body on his horse. And his horse, instead of going towards the camp of Imam Hussain, it went towards the camp of the enemies. And they took their turns slaughtering him left and right, cutting him into pieces, bits and pieces. This is the grandson of Rasulullah. Bits and pieces being cut up into. And as he falls, he sends out, Assalamu alaikum ya Abba. Assalamu alaikum ya Abba. Assalamu alaikum ya Abba Abdullah. He's saying salam, one final salam to his father. And it says when Hassan runs towards him and he picks up his body, he's having a hard time because he picks up his left side, his right side's falling apart. This is how many pieces they cut him into. He tries again to pick up his son. It's his first son's body. He's picking up his bottom of his body, the front is falling apart. Each part was cut into pieces. This is his son, Ali Akbar, the grandson of Rasulullah. How could you imagine? How can you imagine a father picking up the pieces of his son? Can you imagine the Sukaina who said goodbye, wasn't letting go of her feet to see the pieces of her brother? Can you imagine the sight that day in Bani Hashim? He calls out to Bani Hashim, please come to me, I cannot pick up the pieces of my son, please come, help me. Inna Allah wa lillahi raji'un.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.